Hello, I'm here to talk about the Leslie 700 series, in particular the 700 and the 710. They're distinctly different than a lot of Leslies that are also in the 700 series, like the 760, but they're also different than most Leslies because they're a dual channel Leslie. So it's not it's two channels, but not like stereo left right. It's two channels that are distinctly different in sound that the Leslie's expecting. So the situation was Leslie decided in certain organs that they wanted the flutes and maybe string sounds, maybe later when they get into a little more like early synthesizers. Those sounds would kind of get garbled up by the spinning speakers. So they wanted to have stationary speakers that put out nice pure sounds for in the high end. For strings, flutes, those higher up. So it was the amp has two input channels and two power amps that power two completely different sets of speakers inside the amp. It has stationary speakers and has spinning speakers. But also, at the time they also made a change. The drum, rather than having a speaker facing into it, would have little speakers in it, and it would spin. That's something that didn't keep. That's something they kind of gave up on later too. And they would have a bass speaker that faced down kind of halfway into the drum a little bit, but just a lower facing bass speaker, and then stationary speakers and a horn. So how to do this, how to get this thing working. So this is an extra step of an extra problem to solve if you're using a contemporary keyboard instrument or guitar into the Leslie. So I think we all should know by now the Leslie it needs a very hot input. It was intended to get its preamping from the organ. So you get a hot sound from the organ, and then just one stage of power amping, and then out the Leslie. So we need to bring up the input, which is the same thing in most things. A lot of input, a lot of combo controllers do that. You can add, if you have a controller that isn't a preamp controller as well, you can just add a preamp. Not so hard. But here you need to add two channels of preamping, and you need to send two separate channels with different signal on it. Now I actually made a video. It's here on YouTube. It's how to use your Leslie, a mini mixer as a Leslie preamp, specifically for the dual channel, because you can use a mini mixer, cut the low end on one side, you can do your own balance because you got to pan them left and right, and then have the left side go to the full range and the right side go to the secondary channel, and that should be all the crossover management you need. But there's also this thing from Trek 2 called the crossover. It's a way they were able to sell their 9-pin controller to anyone, no matter which kind of Leslie you had in some of the 11 pins. It would convert the 2-channel Leslies to a 1-channel Leslie, with just basically like a PA speaker crossover, but one that could take the preamped signal. So it's the cheapest thing Trek 2 sells at somewhere in the $60 to $80 range, depending who you get them from. And it's a plug-in, swap-in thing. And so some people convert the Leslie and then they can just treat it like a regular 1-channel Leslie. That's all right. Or you can use, like I was saying, that idea of using the mini mixer, EQ both channels separately, get your volumes dialed in where you want them, and then use the master volume for an overall volume and drive. And that should work fine too. And those things are super cheap. They're like $50 usually these days. Like just a 2-channel mini mixer, 2 to 4-channel mini mixer would do it. And they're compact and cheap. And but the important thing to realize is it's less than ideal for a guitar. If you're thinking of buying one, think again. Unless it's unless you really can't find a single channel Leslie. The 2-channel aspect to it does not add anything. It's just a little bit of a pain. So that's what I'll say about the Leslie 700 and the 710. Be wary. If you do have one, yes, it can be adapted, but it's going to be a couple steps in making that happen. And how you do it is also up to you. So thanks for watching, and I have other videos with information about Hammonds and Leslies you can watch here on YouTube, and I hope that was helpful.